This is the Between Extraordinary Part 23, the finale of this campaign arc. When we last saw the characters, we learned that they were going to be confronting Jazad in his arena, and they are they have four defense mechanisms they have to get through, or three defense mechanisms they have to get through, and then one little kind of bonus problem to resolve. The first is defeating the creature Astagoth the Star Devourer in gladiatorial combat just so they can be there and get close to Jazad. Once that's done, dropping somehow or getting on the other side of Jazad's impenetrable force field, then contending with Jazad's disintegration ray, which we've seen a number of times in the campaign. And then once you do that, you're basically entitled to defeat Jazad at that point. And that's essentially Mastermind resolved. There is a fourth question, which is convincing, like, how do you convince Tunara to not just continue Jazad's conquering of the cosmos? And so that's sort of where that lies. We're telling the story principally in flashback, but whenever you're ready to answer a question, we flash forward and then answer it and resolve it at that moment. You have done that for the first question. You have defeated Astagoth the Star Devourer. The question now is, are we flashing back to see more of the lead up to this confrontation, or are we going straight to trying to get past the force field? You have 6 clues available for your remaining 3 questions, each of which is a complexity 2.
So the force field is next, and our clues that we have so far are that I think kind of like lead to that. Our Astagoth touches multiple black pillars at the same time. We could fold in some subatomic hum from the fragrant void. That's 2.
Oh, the idea that now that Astagoth's dead, something about his ability to be in multiple places at once gives you the ability to be in multiple places at once. Is that the
We're
idea?
covered in the ick,
Yeah.
and something about that,
Oh, I'm kind of into that. Yeah,
Eldritch ick.
yeah, that's kind of interesting. Any other thoughts?
I like the idea of it advancing through the force field one and then seeing where we're at. Because, yeah, I think that the story, like what we would have been looking for, might be a little bit different as we advance on here. So, yeah.
Well,
Well,
yeah.
and if we use the clue that something about now that we've killed Astagoth, we might have a limited time to get through the force field. It's a 1-2 punch, and then we do a flashback.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because basically you once you get past the force field, you then have to deal with him directly, and then that will be the end of Jazad. But dealing with him means dealing with the disintegration ray, right? And um, just to remind everybody where everyone's at, Lady Florence and Dom are down there in the arena having just killed Astagoth. Ms. Balakwa is up in Jazad's box. We have reason to believe that Jazad's not even super conscious of you, Ms. Balakwa. Like he doesn't even know who you are. Maybe
We
because
met through a plant wall one time.
yeah, like maybe the man in the sun mask or Tunara like protected you and kept you out of his sight while he was in London. But he's very focused on Lady Florence and right now Dom. It's really interesting because he addressed whoever was in the arena, and it turned out to be Lady Florence and Dom, which means he called Dom Barbarian Prince. I find that interesting, and of course he challenged Lady Florence, attempting to assassinate him. So he may not even be aware that Jakob is even here, right? He may not know, and he clearly has no sense of the danger Ms. Balakwa poses. So that's sort of the situation right now. Jakob, of course, is roaming around pretending to be a maintenance man in on the palace grounds. So, who wants to come up with an answer for the question? How do we defeat Jazad's force field?
I was good with Sarah's suggestion.
I'm just curious about the mechanics of it. Like, what's it doing? What's it allowing you to do? You're muted, Sarah.
Thank you. So my thought process is that once we or Lady Florence and Dom have been able to defeat the Star Devourer, that they could essentially like war paint with the Astagoth blood, and somehow the resonance of that creature allows them to pass through a force field or ignore that sort of barrier because they're not existing on this plane entirely all at once.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I like that a lot. What does the subsonic hum have to do with it?
It's like tinnitus. It's what they hear as they're like vibrating through the dimensions.
Oh, I like it. I kind of like the idea of like, um, I kind of like the idea of like somehow, like if you're able to tune into the vibrations yourselves, you can, once you have some of Astagoth on you, and then you like somehow can hit this frequency, then you have everything you need to get to be on the other side of the force field. I think that's pretty cool. I'm just curious, like, what would that be? Like, how would we get? Is that something Jakob's helping with on the other side? I wonder.
Yeah, let me ask one other question there. If it's just the people covered in the goo, the force field seems to be still standing for everyone else. What if by approaching or passing through in the goo, you essentially just melt a person-shaped hole through this force field, allowing passage for those of us not covered in goo?
Or even if just Astagoth's blood vibrates at the same subsonic hum as the Fragrant Void, and that disrupts the force field entirely.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, yeah. That's interesting. I like that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's fun. It's very science fiction-y, right? It'd be a flat roll if you all want to give it a go. I put the die roller in there. I like the group shared die roller for this.
I'm looking
If
at
we're going
master
with the,
clues.
oh.
Anybody have anything we can add on to it?
I think that there is, it's probably not the right to use it here, but the ones that I'm looking at is that Jasad was lured to Earth by Flag, as well as the clue that we have about like some impressive warriors are invited to kiss Jasad's ring, that there's a distraction element between those two of pulling in Jasad's attention. But I think that, and I've got Flag's saber as well, but I think that maybe undercuts or conflicts for this role with, it sounds like those of us who are in the arena are the ones that are going to be doing the sneakiness here in a way to get past the force field. So I don't know if the us distracting Jasad as well makes sense. We can save that for the laser beam itself.
Yeah, I think. Do we want to risk a flat roll?
If somebody's feeling hot, I'm not.
So if we're doing the one roll per player, it would be Sarah's turn.
Yeah, but I don't know if I want her to die right here, right now. All
The
right.
dice were very kind to you last time. Maybe they will be again.
Revert to the mean.
So we don't want to stack
Gambler.
another mastermind clue in there?
Do you have any that would make sense in this? That's, I think, the tricky thing here.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the worker at the Ambergreen Mill had a tattoo of Venus. Was it a tattoo of the planet or like the star positions?
I don't remember. I don't think we ever said definitively what it precisely was.
Okay.
I feel like we tied into star maps because that was also kind of the sluggers thing, but I don't recall precisely.
Yeah, that clue was that all came about because like if you recall, originally Flag was trying to convince the slugger to be like this champion for Jasad, right? And that was Flag's original like kind of offering to Jasad, but that never shook out for him. So
So
I think we're
is
on a
there-
flat roll here.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's find out how this goes. Apologies, I hadn't opened the die roll yet because I wasn't going to volunteer.
Sarah also froze.
Oh,
Oh, that's great. Okay. Oh,
Hello.
you're back.
You're back.
I was like, this is
So-
taking a long
no,
time.
I went dark because I rolled a fucking 3.
Oh, you rolled a 3. Oh, how unfortunate. That is a fail.
Oh,
I'm gonna do a reaction. My reaction is going to be to separate the group. I am going to send Lady Florence and Dominic hurtling into the fragrant void. If you don't all mark Janus Mask.
what if Victoria comes to the fragrant void to get you back?
Remind me, 2 of you, if you mark another mask, you're gone, right?
Yes.
I have
thi-
kind of a flex. Mine's like 1.5.
Ms. Blockwell, you're on your last one, right?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, let's take a look. I mean, it doesn't mean you're like gone for the session because we still have the flashback to do, right? But but you're gone at this moment. At this moment in the confrontation, this is when you're gone. If you
Oh
mark the
god, I
Janus
wasn't
Mask.
playing death this moment. Okay. I guess we have to. I mean, there's no not succeeding here.
No, if we fail and they get sent to the fragrant void, we just round up more clues and try again, right?
Well, they'll be in the fragrant void, and neither of them are what I would describe as the most supernaturally inclined. And I don't know how much of a taxi service that I'll be able to provide in character. How do you guys want to role play it, Dom and Lady Florence?
if we are going to the fragrant void, I think it's easy enough that we miscalculated, and the force field acts as a portal to the void for us, and we oops, instead of passing through, we pass.
Yeah, and suddenly
True.
it's going to be on Jakob and Ms. Balakwa to finish the job because Dom and Lady Florence will be in the fragrant void.
Get us out of here.
You can always just submit and let Jazad win. Let him escape your grasp.
Oh, I just get folded into the harem and live a quiet, manicured life. I didn't want Miss Balakwa to die here, so I am not inclined to check a mask, but I would like everybody else to outvote me or vote with me.
Good with
I'm
me.
fine with complications. So
Okay. The void's nice this time of year.
extra fragrant.
If we're not marking it, then the clues are unused, so you get the clues back. But yeah, Dom and Lady Florence, you make your move believing that having some of Astagoth's viscera on you, you will be able to be into you will be able to use your ability to be in two different places at once to tap into the subsonic hum that will disrupt the force field. Regrettably, all it does is just hurtle you into the fragrant void. Ms. Balakwa, Jakob, you are maybe tertiarily aware of it. You might be like kind of watching from off on the side somewhere. Ms. Balakwa, you realize this hasn't worked. There's a big like, oh, in the audience as the two combatants disappear. And Jazad, he's sort of like on edge about what's going on, but he can tell that his defenses are still raised, and there's just like this like pause, this silence, no one really knows what's happening here. But out of an abundance of caution and paranoia, we've described Jazad as quite paranoid at this point. A number of robot sentries have joined you in the box to provide extra security for Jazad because Jazad doesn't know what's happening. Do we go back to the flashback?
Yep.
Very well. And so the last thing we saw in 3 days ago was Dom had just kind of found out all this information about the arena. Jakob was Jakob like got access to the facilities in the palace. Lady Florence, I don't remember where we left you, Lady Florence.
I killed a man. Had that duel with Bartleby.
Oh, that's right.
James
Oh, yeah.
Bartleby.
That's right. Yeah. You like you had access to you had access to Jazad's like inner sanctum,
Mhm.
and Ms. Balakwa, you were reconnecting with Tunara. So let's go around the table and find out what everyone's doing at this point. Ms. Balakwa, what's going on?
Well, I think that I would be inclined, now understanding Tunara's position a little better and having accepted her father's rule of law for now, I think I would go and I would find Dom or Jakob, whoever was first, because I think I am no longer feeling she's obsessed with me, and I feel these eyes on the back of my neck everywhere I go now, and I just feel like I want a partner.
So I'm sorry, you said you're gonna go find Dom?
Dom or Jakob,
Oh,
whoever
Dom
ends
or
up being
Jakob, okay.
wherever I don't know where Tunara is.
Yeah. Dom, what are you doing right now?
That's a really good question. He's already explored the arena and
You've gained some notoriety for having destroyed
yes,
Karnak.
Dom of the Two Arms. I think maybe he would want to. He'd probably want to find someone else to try and concoct this plan with. He's not a planner. Dom's a doer, so he would want a planner. So Jakob, Victoria, or even Lady Florence, someone that he could.
Sounds like we're all
kind of
meeting
bounce
back
these
up.
off of.
It seems like what's kind of happening here. Lady Florence, what are you thinking?
Immediately I'm thinking that for Lady Florence, this is like her tell Jasad it was me moment, and is trying to stage this where this death happened to make sure that Jasad knows that she's there. I think that there's something going on with Lady Florence as well, where uh there's sort of like a power lever thing here where Jasad has tried to use her as a pet, but Lady Florence is typically uses everyone else as a pet. And so I think there's something here of like trying to t make it clear to Jasad that he will never be allowed to love anyone else. Lady Florence can love whoever she wants. She can go to Mars and have an affair with the King of the Mars, but like Jasad will always be obsessed with Lady Florence, and Lady Florence knows it and will only allow that to be who he can be obsessed with.
So what do you do?
So I think I've got Admiral Flagg's saber as well. As Grizzly and the love notes. I'm gonna take the love notes. It's gonna stage a really like grisly scene here. I think that I'll take the love notes and I'm going to write things over them in Bartleby's blood. Um, yeah, Lady Florence she's in another headspace entirely right now.
I mean, I think you probably risk some danger being
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
You know, if Yeah, you almost certainly risk some danger here.
I think that that is fair. Um, Putting it together, I've been trying to figure out how to use this lace handkerchief, and I think that I'm going to write love Lady Florence on the handkerchief and Bartleby's blood and just leave it on top of his body. I think that that's
Let's
how it's
do
going to be.
let's do the day move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you get, I don't know, like caught doing this or whatever?
That I'm going to be thrown into an arena.
Yeah, exactly.
Jasad will think
Yeah.
that I'm trying to assassinate him. But in the immediate terms here, I think that like she will just take too long staging all of this. Like the message has been sent. Like she's just trying to drive it home, and she knows she's probably in the most dangerous place to be in all of on all of Venus, and where she's not. She knows she's not supposed to be. So I think it's yeah that this is where she gets caught is what
Yeah.
she's afraid of.
Yeah, I think it probably like takes you out of this completely, right? Like this is
Mhm.
I think it's a sort of meta complication, but basically this ends the flashback for you. Like this is it.
Mhm.
You were going to be until you get tossed in the arena.
I
So,
think that's fair.
go ahead and roll with advantage though if you're marking that handkerchief.
Yep. Yep.
And it's going to be composure.
Oh, it's a 7.
A 7. Wow, even with your
Yep.
+3 and
Uh-huh.
advantage. Wow.
I dodged a bullet there with the advantage, to be honest.
Apparently, yeah. Very well. You succeed. You are going to leave your your message to Jazad, and I think I'm just going to give you a complication, which is I think you to kind of represent your headspace, like what you're clearly very like distracted and taking risks, and whatever we think that would be as a condition, I think that's what you have. Like you are, um, you know,
All I have is fatal attraction.
that's pretty good.
Oh, I love that. Just attraction. I was also thinking just like blood in her eyes, like
oh, that's
she's
pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah. But otherwise, you're able to leave your message. And are you then going to reconvene with the group?
Yeah, as
Okay.
best as I can, yeah.
Jakob, what are you doing next?
All right, bear with me. This is going to be like a 3-scene set of comic panels, flashing through moments in time. Jakob in the present moment, seeing the force field still standing, that they've disappeared. Jakob back in London, looking at that Venusian holy text, "The sun rises in the west," and reading this passage that says, "Yea, verily, the feeble ones who wish to approach the High Imperator must do so from the west at all times with their heads bowed. Uh, uh, those who should be tainted by the destroyer of stars shall not pass and shall disappear into yon void and never gaze upon the Imperator again." And it's going on, and then he turns the page, and there's a map that's supposed to be showing Jasad's palace, and he's gazing at it, and he's just like, "That looks familiar." And then there's another moment in time, uh, months back, where Jakob is standing at the entrance to Cremorne Gardens, looking at the little tourist pamphlet with the map of it. And the map of Cremorne Gardens is shockingly similar to the map of Jasad's High Imperator's palace. And from there, we're back to the present moment.
I love
Jakob
it.
says,
Yeah.
you know, there's got to be a map around here somewhere that is going to give us the proper layout. And I think from there, little Martian know-how, I might be able to figure out how we can turn this thing off, like where the controls are.
Do the information move with reason, and you can use the Venusian holy text for advantage.
Right. On the roller we're using, it's gold that we're using for this, right?
Oh no, you can just roll regular dice for your
I'm sorry. Oh, regular dice, I'm
rolls.
sorry.
That's
Okay.
just for the group rolls.
All right. I'm sorry. Which attribute was it with, you said?
Reason.
Reason. All right.
3 dice, take the 2 highest.
So 7, 8, 9. Got a 9.
You have your clue. I'll let you editorialize the clue. You had a lot there going on. It sounds like you're looking for something in particular, so you can have the clue be whatever you want it to be.
I think that I've got Sven Gilfolk's livery on. I'm dressed in the little not Martian, Venusian repair person's attire. And I have already used his keys, but I kind of realized, oh, hang on, there's a locker room. And that's going to have the whole maintenance array of like, where do you have the control panels to shut things down? And the clue is essentially that there's like a crystalline circuit. Like if you pull a crystal out, it's going to cut power to a few things at once, and it will diminish the strength of the force field enough that you could push through it with a little bit of effort.
Very good. That's a pretty straightforward clue. Do we want to have another go at answer a question? I mean, since that didn't work, Jakob, here's your chance to keep the plan on track with your backup. What is to get a better roll? Are there any other clues that might help you out there?
The subsonic hum could shatter one of the crystals, like it's resonant with it, and that's what we need to use to remove it.
Oh, that's interesting. Maybe like the crystal is there. You can't remove it so much as you have to do this like subsonic hum to like destroy it. That's pretty good. If everyone agrees, that's 2 clues.
And am I following
Try to go for
you have to
one.
vocalize it? Like you're like, at the right.
Oh, that could be
know.
fun for some Martian yodeling going on.
Martian throat singing.
Some Martian throat singing. No, I
Let's-
think that's pretty fun. Any other clues? Do you want to work into this answer?
Let's recontextualize the tapestry that shows Jazad's family tree. And those tree branches are also shaped in that kind of same Cremorne Garden sort of map, sort of layout of the palace is the same shape as where the names are on the tree. So like it coordinates somehow to, like it's a pattern that is traditional in Jazad's family, and that's why they build everything that shape. It's like when your aunt only gets ducks and duck themed gifts. I don't know.
Oh, interesting. Like it's a map as well. Is that the idea?
Yeah, that's something about the shape of that is also important, but I don't know how it ties back into the crystals.
Yeah, I'm not either. I mean, the
Is it-
subsonic
well-
hum makes a lot of sense, and of course, the crystal is the basic plan.
If we take it the family tree idea, that the family tree is so important and precious that as a matter of Venusian culture, all circuitry is done in that pattern.
Oh, interesting. Oh, oh, that's interesting.
And so by pulling this crystal, you're breaking the royal lineage, breaking the power source to the.
Oh, intriguing. Yeah.
They are narcissistic enough.
So oh, that's interesting. So like the sort of circuitry matches the shape of the family tree and has like significance. It helps you like interpret what to remove, which crystal to remove. I like that. That's fun. That's sufficient. That's some Doctor Who shit. I'm into it. It's a +1. That's a better roll if you want to have a go at it, Jakob.
What do y'all think?
I'm happy with it.
I guess it's your turn.
I'm in the void, so whatever you do is what you do.
All right, so 2 dice in the dice roller.
Yeah, just do a risk 2 light. It's fine.
Got a wait, yeah, 9.
9. Good.
+1.
Yeah, 9 + 1 is 10. So you succeed. This did it. So Jakob, the scene is yours. Once you realize that Dominic and Lady Florence's plan didn't shake out, that they have not appeared on the other side of the force field, what's your backup for getting the force field down?
All right. If y'all don't know this, in Wales, when you count sheep, you count with a different number system than normal counting of numbers. And Jakob is prowling around sort of below Jasad's throne, looking for this circuit map. And he's counting along like Jan, Tan, Tenema, the Pip, kind of counting down these things and looking for the right number of circuits, like counting along the lines, like this many down, this many over. It turns out 20 fingers is fantastically useful for counting sheep and whales because they count up to 20 and then start over. And it's the 21st line in the family tree where this has to be popped. And when Jakob sees it, he starts kind of his vocal cords kind of bifurcate, and he starts doing this sort of Martian throat singing, chanting, trying to bring in that right harmonic to crack the crystal rather than physically pulling it out to like break it permanently so it can't be replaced. And it does, like it vibrates, trembles, and starts to splinter into little crystalline bits. And the power goes down. There's sort of a boom, and the sound kind of goes quiet. The audience in the arena, seeing like a flickering of lights, gets quiet. Also, kind of thinking like, what's going on? There's a hush, and Jakob's voice goes just a little too long, and Jasad can hear Martian throat singing from below his throne.
Nice. That's a good dramatic end to that moment. Let's go to the flashback before any of this has happened. Everyone meeting back up, presumably at Lady Florence's palace, but maybe somewhere else.
I think Dom will walk into the room looking very proud of himself, and he says, "I know how we're going to kill the Star Destroyer."
Well, I have some ideas on how to drop that force field, but it's a little. I don't know how to mix my workings with this Martian, Venusian, alien. It might work.
I think
Might
Lady
as
Florence.
in might just not work, or might work as in will explode.
Yes, I think would be a fair answer to any of those questions. But if you kill the Star Destroyer first, there's a resonant quality that might work with the force field. I think it has to do with other planes. And then I wonder if you'll allow me, Jason, what if Victoria grabs everybody's hands and just tries to bring them to the void to show them?
Oh, interesting. What would you be hoping to accomplish here?
Well, I have a move that allows me to travel to the void to find clues.
Right.
But I could also bring these people with me to show them, okay, well, if Astagoth does this, and to try to explain the extra dimensional stuff and the solution of the force field. Also cheekily adding that now Dominic and Lady Florence have retroactively already been to the void once. That might help them navigate.
They might
in
see
the future.
something. They might see something there that helps them in
Yes.
for the flash forward. Yeah, I like that. That's pretty good. Is everybody going to the Fragrant Void field trip with Ms. Balakwa?
You
Yep.
blink,
Sure.
and then you open your eyes again. There is no swelling of black magic, no oiling, roiling smoke.
Just being in Venus probably makes accessing it much easier, right, than it would be on Earth. Everybody has to take a different form in the Fragrant Void. Everyone but Ms. Balakwa, who looks just like Ms. Balakwa. But everyone else takes on symbolic form, something that represents them, the language of the subconscious, the way it interprets you. You are not you. You are how the cosmos, the infinite void, perceives you. You're a tarot card. You're a number in the I Ching. You're a color. You're a creature. How are you perceived?
While Miss Balakwa does look like herself, you do see that her skirts, that traditional Victorian, does seem to extend out into the darkness below her onto the black pillar. And there is a glow faintly in her skin around her throat. But otherwise, just herself.
I think Lady Florence is perceived like Undertow. This like force of the ocean that sucks things in from underneath and takes away their footing and takes control of them. Um, and so that, yeah, any interaction with whatever she is within the fragrant void just feels like a vortex, a pull underneath whoever she's interacting with.
I think Dom looks like a blood-covered child wearing the skeleton of a wolf.
Jakob, his his legs from like knees down are they look almost like stone, like reddish stone, and when he walks, the stone crumbles and leaves a little trail of Martian dust. Uh, he walks with a large shepherd's crook, and there's a noise like a flag when it's in a strong wind, that kind of flop, 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 flop noise. And there's like brief glimpses that look oddly like he's wearing a Union Jack shawl of some sort. Um, and little faint glimpses of small sheep, like too small, moving around his legs and between his legs.
So, as you can see, there are several different angles in which this creature. Oh, yes, I forgot. Lady Florence, you look more yourself than I could ever say. But hopefully, if you see here, and as I try to describe the positioning of how Astagoth maintains footing in several different planes, I would like to also roll to see if we can't investigate and find some more stuff while we're here.
Yeah, I think, well, I mean, I feel like you being here as the sort of guide is probably what you're doing, Ms. Balakwa. I think it's probably more interesting for the others to see what they can see in the void now that you've brought them here.
Then what I'll say is I'll just kind of pull the vision closer, like a zoom,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
all of us are moved 3 or
Not
4
like that.
pillars
Yeah, that's really
away,
good. Yeah, yeah.
and then you can
You're
see
able to
more.
like pull things close and show them to see what they see.
I
Who
will
wishes to
facilitate.
who wishes to stare into the fragrant void to see what it reveals to you? These are dangerous information moves, just so you know, but do go ahead.
I love it.
It's going to be with sensitivity, and
Oh no.
it's going to be with sensitivity, and because you have blood in your eyes, Lady Florence, I'm putting you at disadvantage because I think the void will want to show you that which will send you careening over the edge. Do go ahead and roll though, unless you want to try to work an item in.
Yeah, I do want to try and work an item in. Because Lady Florence doesn't really have a physical presence here in a way, but she does have a victim's face from Sally No Face.
Okay.
So I think it's going to like take on
I love how
the
weird this is getting.
sense.
It's getting so weird.
Yeah, the sense of Undertow like is just kind of like now has this sort of like rippling like flesh of a face.
Mhm.
And maybe that's also kind of like how she's hiding behind it like a mask, right? To
Mhm.
put a layer of disguise between herself
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the void that she is looking into.
Love it. That's chef's kiss. Very good. Do roll flat with sensitivity. What you got?
5.
5.
And it's sensitivity, so it's worse than that. Well, it's 0. Okay, flat 5.
Lady Florence, you are going to gaze upon putting on this mask upon having this filter over you, your eyes are going to perceive things that human eyes can't normally perceive. Indeed, as you stare into this sort of roiling cosmic vastness of Astagoth, you are going to witness an impossible color. You are going to witness the impossible color jail, and it threatens to shatter your mind. I would like the night move. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail to properly mentally process observing the impossible color?
I'm afraid that it will trap me here as sort of an usher of the revenge that I want, as well as because of the connection in our bloodline, it will trap Jakob here as well. And
Oh.
so this plot will be snuffed essentially.
It's worse than that. You will return. You will. Obviously, everything has to happen in the arena. But when you get sent to the Fragrant Void the second time, you are purposely removing yourself. You're seeking the impossible color with the intention of eventually entrapping Jakob with it as well. It's like you're having a plan. You're changing your plan essentially.
Okay.
But it's the end of your character, regardless, in the future timeline or in the flash forward if you fail here.
Is the intent sort of entrap Jakob in the Fragrant Void to keep him safe? Sort of motherly.
Well, maybe, yeah, theoretically, like, so you can both just stare at the impossible color forever. This is gonna be sensitivity again. I'll let you have it at regular dice though.
And can you give me again what the specific thing that's happening here? Like, is this just essentially like a resistance to that?
You're just like you're just trying to like keep control of your mental faculties, essentially. Yeah.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Let's do it. 7.
I'm going to give you a condition, the impossible color, but you otherwise keep it together right now. How does it make you feel, though, to look at this impossible color?
I mean, we've been like leaning into this like Lady Florence is like a control freak essentially, and just like wanting to like control and capture and cage everything in a way. And I think that this impossible color, like she realizes that this is effectively her match. As much as like Jasad is kind of like a sparring partner in a way where they go back and forth and all of these rivals that she's had, like this is something that she knows she's never going to be able to catch. It is impossible, but she sees it and she knows that it exists. And I think that idea of like her being an explorer and discovering something, but then not being able to control it and shape it and change it in the way that she wants is the thing that is, yeah, kind of like grabbing at her and yeah, ripping at what she perceives herself to be.
I love it. Dominic, do you wish to stare into the heart of Astagoth in the Fragrant Void to see what might be helpful here?
Yeah. Why not?
That's going to be an information move with sensitivity. You have no conditions, so.
Right. Okay. That's 10.
10. Very good. Oh boy, I have to give you a clue here. So what a strange clue. Let me think about it. What about you, Jakob? Are you going to also stare into the Fragrant Void?
I am, and I've got a bit of a request of what I might see there.
Let's see how your die roll goes first. So I'll let you shape the clue, but I want to know, just at a basic level, are we doing this die roll?
Are we doing it? You said I missed a word there.
Oh yeah, are you going to do I assume you're going to go ahead and roll with
Yeah,
sensitivity.
and I've got my Vault of the Cosmic Mind. Is that the right
Oh
name?
yeah.
Currently is giving me an extra die, or sorry, an extra point on a sensitivity die roll, so I'm at +2 on that.
Nice.
Can I check an object to
Get advantage, absolutely.
get advantage?
Yeah.
All right, so the object I want to check, and this kind of ties into what I'm hoping I see, that engraved filigreed puzzle box that I was never able to open,
Mhm.
but the Limehouse Lurker vampire child was able to open,
Yes.
has a Martian ring inside.
Ah,
I think it'll be a fantastic time to try to retrieve the Martian
love it.
ring.
So good. We're having a weird session. Such a weird, like Lovecraftian horror session. Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Oh, good grief. What is that? That is a 7 with +2 included.
So 9.
No, it's a 7.
The total is 7. Okay.
With advantage, I rolled 5.
Okay, very good, very good. Mike's having some tech issues. Let's just take a 5-minute break now.
All right.
Okay, we're back. Jakob, go ahead and give us your clue since you had an idea for it.
Okay, so as I am peering into the fragrant void, I'm looking at this filigreed silver puzzle box that only the vampire child, the Limehouse Lurker, was ever able to open, but had showed me there was a Martian ring within. And in the fragrant void, I kind of find it's in my pocket, that puzzle box, pull it out and start to fiddle with it, and I don't know, just different sense of sensitivity here. Things feel a little different. I realize sort of, oh, my fingers were in the wrong spot. You have to hold it a different way. You have to angle it properly towards the planets to open this thing. And I'm still fiddling with it, and it's not quite working. And then there's this thin little whispery voice, and it says, "No, touch it from beneath." And I look down, and there's like a sort of a ghostly Limehouse Lurker child there, blood pouring down its entire torso. And it reaches up with a little finger and pushes some spot that I'm missing, and there's a little click, and the box opens up, and within is a Martian ring. And I pull it out and gaze at it and realize that it doesn't fit my hand. It actually would fit Lady Florence's hand.
Interesting. So what's the clue? The existence of this ring?
I'm thinking like a Jasad lover's quarrel kind of thing. And I'm hoping for a little input from Mike on this, but in that sense that Lady Florence had the freedom to pursue other lovers, including the King of Mars, that at some point Jasad gave her a ring with Martian stone on it as sort of a I'm going to crush this planet. You should come with me. Like I am the more powerful of the lovers you might have.
So the clue
Does that
then
work,
is this
Mike?
ring that Jazad gave to Lady Florence, or
Correct.
or
if that works with Mike.
or intended to give. Like how did it end up in the puzzle box? I guess is what I want to know.
Well, also it's a Martian ring. Jazad wouldn't have given a Martian ring unless it was like conquering hero stuff.
Yeah, symbolic. Like
I see.
like I'm going to crush this planet down to the size of a little tiny gemstone, and so there's a little piece of Martian rock embedded on this. No, I feel like this could work as a way of I don't know, undoing Jasad's sort of high imperator, all-powerful conquerorness.
Be a choice where
Mike, your audio.
presented.
Mike's audio is crazy.
Yeah, Mike's
right?
audio is going.
My
wonky.
audio is crazy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Give you a moment. We'll just pause again. Okay, we're back. We had a quick conversation while we were waiting on Mike to wrap or to get his tech issue figured out. And we determined that what we really want out of that ring clue is just that the clue is just the existence of the ring in the box. No extra explanation required. So that is the clue. Dom, I think I'm going to make your clue. I'm just going to basically the thing that Lady Florence was able to see by putting on a mask this impossible color, I think you're able to see because you've always been this sort of like, you've always been this killer. You've always been this like other person. You've always had you've always had a hand, both by heritage, by heritage and profession, and access into this sort of like other realm. And so you're able to see the color, and I'm simply making it a clue. The existence of the impossible color is the clue. Not a bad jaunt into the fragrant void, all things considered. Do we want to have a go at the flash forward?
Who's next?
Let's talk about I want to talk about that moment when the two of you go into the fragrant void, when you get put back in the fragrant void, hurtled into the fragrant void. Dom, no sight of Lady Florence at all. The two of you have not ended up together wherever you've gone. You find yourself on one of these the surfaces of one of these black pillars, flecked with gold, the mist all around. And you see in the center of the pillar a small fetal thing, a thing that has not yet been born, but will be born. Or it would be more accurate to say it will be reborn. This is the reincarnation of the Wolf King. You know it intuitively. It's going to go to some other plane of existence, some other dimension, some other timeline, where it will cause all the pain and terror that it caused in its previous existence, unless you go to resume your hunt. Do you? If you do, that's epilogue for Dom.
I don't think he does.
He does not. What do you do instead?
I think he'll see it, and in this strange blood covered animated child form, there's a moment where he considers it for quite intensely.
This probably should be the night move if I'm being honest, but I'm going to keep it out of the realm of dice and let you decide.
He's going to say something very uncharacteristic for a child looking thing, and then turn around and try to find Lady Florence.
Lady Florence, you are floating in the middle of the cosmic interdimensional wreckage that is Astagoth, the Star Devourer. It is the impossible color exploded. It is souls. It is the energy of planets. It is a psychic maelstrom, swirling, roiling, exploding over and over, but in perfect silence here in the void. And you're in the middle of it. Whatever happened to Astagoth in the material realm of Venus can't compare to what's happening to Astagoth in the fragrant void. I want the night move from you right now. What do you afraid is going to happen if you fail to keep it together in this moment, or if you just get caught up in this psychic maelstrom?
The thing that immediately came to my head, and I'm kind of piecing it through, but just to throw it out, is that I will become Astagoth. I don't know exactly what that means. And I'm kind of like piecing it together, but yeah, like maybe that makes me the pet of these power players across the galaxy as opposed to having my own agency here.
I love it. I think it's great. How are you trying to resist becoming Astagoth?
I think I'm going to lean into the same theme and I'm going to check another little item in my box of gadgets and gadgets. I've got a shriveled monkey in a cage. And so I think that I'm going to try and get Astagoth to like go into that instead. That little like monkey. And then I've got the impossible color. I've got Astagoth. I think that impossible color is maybe too far, but like I've got this thing that's between us, this vortex that's pulling me in. I've got that under control. I've got it in a
You got the
cage.
monkey in the cage. I love it.
Yes.
That's really good. I love it. I think that's going to be sensitivity again.
Okay.
I am going to put you at disadvantage, but you can even it out with the monkey in the cage, which here is sort of like, even though it's something that's in your personal quarters back at Hargrave House, here it's something symbolic, right? It's
Right,
like a
right.
symbolic
Yeah.
representation of it.
Yeah.
Just so people aren't wondering if you were actually carrying around a monkey in a cage. Do go ahead and roll 2d6 plus 0.
Doing a little dice change here. 4.
Are you taking this outcome? Is this the end of
Um,
Lady Florence becoming Astagoth the Star Devourer? It's a pretty good end.
I think I'm going to check my box just because I want to use it, and it might be make things even weirder.
Which is this that you're checking?
A Venusian ray gun in London.
Oh, this is your
And
custom move, huh?
it is my custom move.
Let's read it. I'll read it.
Yeah.
Lady Florence stole a ray gun from Jazad while aboard Resplendent. When Lady Florence would check her final mask, she may instead check this move. In this moment, she uses the ray gun to vaporize someone or something that eliminates this particular danger for the foreseeable future. I can decide who or what and also choose either or both of the following. Either Resplendent immediately becomes aware of the discharge and appears hovering above the scene, or Lady Florence reveals what item or information she left while stealing the weapon that gives Jazad an edge on something he seeks. Oh, interesting. Lady Florence may attempt to use the ray gun again at a later time, but rolls plus sensitivity. So this is really interesting. How are you imagining this looks in the fiction? What's happening here?
I think that that's sort of like because this is all I'm just imagining for
It's
what it's
all
worth.
it's all just yeah
Like one of
Fragrant
these
Void
like
stuff.
early 70s animations where like it's just somebody who's tripping out that's like playing around with like imagery, and so you see the face that over the undertow and it's moving around. You see it turn into this cage and the shriveled monkey and try to pull out all of these like colors and lights and very 2001 and psychedelic animation and all of that type of thing. And it's a tug and a pull, and there's these crescendos of violin strings and like banging cymbals and all of that as all of the explosions are also silent. And then at some point, you just see Jasad's ray gun and it just like powers up and you can hear the hum of it powering up and you see this ray just burst out, and I think that the bright light of the ray gun just like blinds out everything. So it's just like everything turns white. There's no more impossible color. It's the presence of all color at this point. And yeah, at that point, I'll hand it back over.
Is this ray gun how we're going to ultimately defeat Jazad's disintegration ray? Like, is this the plan? If you're gonna like blast him from the Fragrant Void using the power of Astagoth the Star Devourer as raw energy through the cosmos?
That's interesting. That's maybe how the plan shifted. Yeah.
Well, that's
But this-
I mean, it's
yeah.
I mean, you still have to do the roll, and you still have to get some clues worked in to qualify for the role. I mean, obviously, the impossible color is one. What might the Martian ring have to do with it?
I think we could play with the rings, because we've got the Martian ring and we've got Jassad's ring as well. The way that I was thinking about it is that there was a choice presented to Lady Florence at some point of whether she wanted to bind herself to Mars or bind herself to Venus. And maybe that's when she went back to Earth. And that's essentially like she chose not to make a choice. And so there are these, Jassad has the ring that represents Venus on him, and there's
Mhm.
this other Martian ring. And so, okay, now how does that tie into this ray gun thing? Um,
The connection between the two rings would have to be you having a connection to that ring allows you to breach through back to the material plane that we're all on, and we just see a purple laser go meow over Jazad's head.
there is, and the Martian ring is in the void, right?
Yeah.
And the Venetian ring,
no, not necessarily,
Okay.
because Jakob had it. Jakob had it, right?
And he's now currently back. Yeah.
Yeah. So it just depends on in flashback whether he gave it to you or not, or wherever we want that ring to be. Yeah.
because that might be interesting that there is a bind between those rings wherever, and we can play with that thematically
Oh,
going
that's pretty
forward
interesting.
too.
Yeah.
And so like
Mhm.
maybe Jakob just said like, here, mom. And I took it, but now there is that connection. These two things want to be together. So with this
Oh,
burst of ray gun power, it's
yes.
going to go thwoomp, right
The
back in.
rings are the conduit that allows it to pass through the fragrant void,
Yeah.
blasts, shatters Jazad's disintegration orb, and wow, what a really what a wild a wild sequence of events. That's pretty cool. And also Jazad's ring, the Jazad's ring clue also works in, so that's a +1.
Mhm.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I mean, also you could even make
In
a
the
case for
Astagoth, right?
Astagoth. Yeah, you can even make
Mhm.
the Astagoth touching multiple black pillars at the
Oh
same
yeah,
time. Yeah, as well. So it all fits. It's +2. It's a great roll.
+2.
Yeah.
Cool.
And that'll still give Jakob time to make his speech at Jazad, because this is just going to destroy the disintegration ray. So
My rolls have been such shit, but we got an 8 out of the extra clues.
Very good. I love it. The scene is yours, Mike. Describe how you destroy Jazad's disintegration ray. Give us the whole scene here.
I mean, I think we've got to the point of this ray gun firing at this point. And so I think on Venus, under sort of I don't know if we described the atmosphere of Venus yet. Um, Purple, yellow, swirling hues, kind of in the same way that we have blue and white skies. It's purple and yellow there. And all of a sudden, everyone in the arena just is like blinded for a second. Like everything is white. It's the sort of that video game effect of when somebody throws uh, oh, the flash bomb. And then you have the ringing in your ears, even though you've only just seen something. I don't think there's even a bang here, but everyone has this ringing in their ears. And there's just like the classic, almost like Death Star beam sort of thing of like now there's just this white beam of energy that seems to be um, um, between this world and the other plane. And this disintegration ring ray just explodes into color, and I think it's like just as surreal, like maybe like flowery petals, and like it's almost like the disintegration ray has been disintegrated into symbolic elements from the fragrant void.
But you didn't get a 10, regrettably, which means Jakob and Ms. Balakwa, you are going to have to fight through Jazad's immediate security forces, his robot security forces, in order to get to him. Ms. Balakwa, you can have that fight, or you can let Tunara squirrel you away to safety in the chaos and leave Jakob on his own.
Victoria is absolutely going to fight.
Fantastic. Jakob, you are on the scene. Victoria, you get the first blow here though. Once you see that the disintegration orb is shattered, or whatever shattered, whatever's happening to it, what's your move to help get Jakob close to Jazad? He's got all these like robot sentries around him.
I think that because it's, her, Tunara, and then Jazad, I think when the laser, she sees this bright white blinding light, she's immediately on her feet and going for Jazad's throat before the light fades again. I want to just see if I can get at him physically, and get him to call off his robots. So it's that kind of classic
let's
swoosh of energy
change
and,
let's change the
throat
order
kind of
then.
thing.
Let's change the
Okay.
order then. If let's have Jakob have the fight with the robots then, and if it goes poorly, maybe you get to him and get him to
Understood.
call off the robots. Yeah, I think that makes more sense in the order of operations here. Jakob, you got to get through Jazad's security forces. What do you do?
Sure. Just a quick question. Remind me, where is Dom at the moment? Is he
He's floating around in the fragrant void
but
currently.
exiting at some point? All right.
Yeah.
So I've got these Venusian invasion gauntlets, and honestly, I don't remember where I acquired them, which threat they came from, but it was one of our threat resolutions. It says Venusian invasion gauntlets, parentheses, a fuck ton of Venusian dynamite. And so I feel like this is a great moment to sort of slip those on, do the old 20 knuckle finger crack, and just start smashing robot heads and blasting Venusian dynamite everywhere.
I love it. This is going to be a vitality roll. Night move. What do you phrase happen? What's going to happen if you fail?
Oh man. I get overwhelmed by the Venusian robots, who then drag me into the arena, and Jasad's gonna do some despicable murdering of the last Martian.
Yeah, I think it's worse than that. He will he will have you hauled into the center of the arena and make an example of you. It's going to be with vitality. You can mark the gauntlets to get advantage. Let's see what you got.
That is a 10 plus 2. That's a 12.
Oh. Ms. Balakwa, your help is not needed here. Maybe it'll be for the last question. We're going to take a quick break so that you can think about your final moments with Jazad, Jakob. I also want to have a final flashback to the days leading up to this so that you all can have scenes to resolve between yourselves as you wish. And then once Jazad's done for, we'll deal with that last question. Succeed or fail, it doesn't matter. It's not really connected to the resolution of the threat. It's just a little bonus thing. And then epilogues for all the characters. So let's take a 10-minute break. Be thinking about in particular any scenes you want to have in the 3 days ago with other characters. So first things first. Jakob, what's going to happen here to the end of Jazad? How do we resolve Jazad?
All right, so we left off with a little bit of Martian throat singing vibrating through the stems, and Jazad having that first sense that there's a Martian on Venus right now. The laser, as it or the ray gun rather, as it sort of blasts through in this burst of light, radiates out through the arena. I think that Jakob realizes this is the moment that he can have revenge. That it's time to try and take Jazad down with these Venusian gauntlets. The robots are coming after me, and I just start fighting my way kind of from the perimeter of the arena out into it, battling robots. There's some fisticuffs, super powered, crushing robot parts, ripping off legs. In the stands of the arena, the Venusians are all cheering and roaring, thinking there's this great fight going on. And today happens to be the Venusian Veterans Recognition Day. And a bunch of military veterans are in the stand wearing their uniforms that proudly proclaim that they were in the Martian invasion and they took out Mars. And they're initially cheering and yelling, and then Jakob, his arms bifurcate, split into four. So it's classic Martian physiology. The veterans are like, ooh, that's different. And then he smashes a couple robots together and screams up at Jasad, "You murdered my people. You destroyed my planet, but you didn't get me." And then he grabs a robot just as its laser beam eyes are about to fire and swings it around like this. And one of the laser beams slices through a banner that says Venusian Veterans Welcome. And it kind of like cuts off the word welcome, flutters to the ground. And the Venusian vets then like, I just remembered I left the lava boiler going at home, and they start to kind of get out of their seats and try to leave the arena, and the battle keeps going. And I think there I'm gonna pass it and say that something happens with a little rift in the fragrant void, perhaps, or someone else steps in.
Well, Ms. Balakwa's right there. Why don't we pick up with Ms. Balakwa's presence in the arena? What do you do, Ms. Balakwa, to help turn the tide here?
I think it's precisely as I envisioned it. In a moment when Jasad and Tanara are distracted and shouting orders, not expecting a Viper within, I will have a blade at Jasad's neck, and I will, kind of growl all that whispery, guttural, fragrant void sticking to me. Just, we're gonna go down and meet him now.
Dominic and Lady Florence, you are able to travel through the rift created by the ray gun. Just give us some of the scene of you battling the forces of Venus.
So I think when Lady Florence lands within the arena, back in the arena, she still has blood on her hands. She doesn't really want to kill anyone else today. I think that this whole experience has really, yeah, done some things to her. But she sees just above the arena, it's the boy, the Gill folk boy, who became in league with Jasad, and he knows now who Jakob is. And I think like he looks like he and Lady Florence catch eyes, and Lady Florence just sees a grin on his face as he jumps over the edge into the arena and is fighting his own way through the robots to get to Jakob. And Lady Florence is now fighting her way through the robots to get to the boy.
What was the result on the last die roll, Jakob?
I had a 12.
A 12. Okay, so then this has to just go however you all want it to go. Dom, do you want to narrate your presence in the scene?
I think we see one of those Martian veterans turning from his seat to make a quick escape. And he turns and his body freezes, and then it falls to the ground, and we see Dom covered in a gout of do they have purple blood? Is that what we purple blood? And he's got his two blades, and he just goes to town mowing through these veterans. And I think I would like this to be his custom move, if I can.
Let's go ahead and read that. Go ahead and read it for us.
When I start combat using Romulus or Remus, my blades, to commit extreme violence, any further rolls for me or any other hunter using the blade is a day move instead of a night move.
I think we'll just kind of keep it in the realm of fiction here, because you all have like kind of the upper hand here in terms of the die results. So I just love it. I loved you. I just want you to describe mowing Venusians down personally. I think that would be great.
I
I
think
don't know if
it's
we would need to go to dice.
this would be like a very Zack Snyder speed ramping sidelong take on things as he's just cutting them down, the blades just shoving through chests and lopping off heads. And then I think in the arena, when he sees all these robots coming for Jakob and sees this other entity, being person, running for Jakob, he's going to just call out and say, "Hey, farm boy!" And he's going to just chuck his worst blade, Remus, at Jakob to catch.
Let's before we get back to this conclusion with Jakob and Gilboy, a quick scene between Jazad and Victoria Belacqua. You have the knife to Jazad's throat. You're all watching this play out in the arena. I know who you are. I am no fool. I understand my daughter, her proclivities, and her foolishness. I didn't think you would be so low as to strike when I chose to invite you into my space, that you would thumb your nose at my hospitality. And yet here we are. I'll make a deal. The man you love, the man who wears a mask in the shape of the sun. I know a secret about him, something you will want to know. Let me go, and I will tell you.
Jazad, I don't think much of you as a being on this plane or any other. I have spent no time plotting against you. Tunara was just an easy access to your person. This is all means to an end. And there is nothing about the man in the sun mask that he has not shared with me directly. You're going to meet this justice. And I will guide you down each step. And if one of these robots moves such a cog in the direction of my head, your head, or anyone else's, well, and then the knife just moves a little closer, chin's a little higher. And I start goose stepping him down these stairs, or like
working him down
awkwardly
there.
walking him down the stairs, like the long stairs of the arena.
Let's have this little moment with. So, what's going on with Jakob and the Gilfolk?
Yeah. So, Jakob's back to counting Welsh sheep here as he's smashing robots. So it's like Jan, Don, rip, tether. Venusian gauntlets are almost misfiring, like he can barely control when the fuck ton of dynamite is launching into various robots. He rips off the leg of one robot, and it's getting down to where the robots are starting to like scatter for self-preservation. And he takes this leg of one robot and essentially uses it like a sheep hook to grab and haul back a straggling robot to destroy that. And then he hears from the stands, "Farm boy," and looks up in time to see Remus flying, sort of somersaulting towards his face, and with one of his Martian hands reaches up and grabs it. And then the Gilfolk is upon him.
Lady Florence, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah,
at
I was
this
going to
point?
say, Mike, do you want to talk about Gilfolk?
Yeah, so I think that it's just sort of like a cliche. The one you want is me. Leave the boy alone. uh as I like rush up and I think like leap and like tackle the Gilfolk folk boy, the leader of the um uh wiped out Atlanteans. Um And I don't know, give me a little something to respond to here, Jason.
He, I think as he's laying down there, as you've got him, he says, well, there aren't many of us left. You might as well finish the job. Destroy my people. You have only ever cared about your own glory. I can't believe you really care about him, his revenge. This has always been about you.
And I look him deep in the eyes and I say, what happened to you? What happened to him? It's the same. And just as I'm giving him the opportunity to make a choice here, I'm giving you yours. And I pull out Admiral Flagg's saber and I hand it to him.
Oh, so Jakob has a choice of whether to spare or take revenge on Jazad, and he has the choice of whether to spare or take revenge on you. Very interesting. I think it's going to depend on what Jakob does. Once Jakob has Jazad on his knees, Jakob, do you spare Jazad? Knowing that if you don't, the other son, the son of the Atlanteans, might not spare Lady Florence.
Sarah, do you have more to describe about promenading Jasad down to the arena ground?
How about this? As you are watching me like awkwardly frog march this Venusian spindly man loses a lot of his elegance in this moment and is, I'm sure, mildly embarrassing for him. As you watch that uncomfortable look on his face and you see me behind him, we flash back to the moment where I had dumped all of us back from landing at the Fragrant Void field trip. And we're all back here in the flashback. I would have pulled you aside and told you something because I saw you present yourself the way you did in the void. And I will say, Jakob, you have always been a bit of sand in my tea, but I see now how powerful you've become, and I feel like as a friend, it would only behoove me to tell you what I have learned with great power. You dwell in the earth of Jan Petrigoch. You are so much of what you are is pure and simple and good. But I would spare yourself a future of sacrificing and blood and spare others the pain that you will inflict if you go around saving everyone, world after world.
Now we're back to the arena with Jasad, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jakob holding Remus, the knife in his hand, glances back to Dom and says, kind of calling out across the arena a little bit of a distance with Jasad here in front of him. Says, Mr. Constantine, your family is one of wolves and mine is one of sheep. But as we've worked together, we've become quite extraordinary, haven't we?
Yes, it's super annoying.
And I look at the Atlantean Gilboy, realizing that we're each the last of our species, essentially the last of our planetary race. And I say, I understand what you've gone through, and I understand and recognize the decisions that you make. Uh, I intend to rebuild Mars, and then I jam Remus into Jassad's chest.
The Atlantean, the boy, bearing Flag's saber, says, I too will work to rebuild my civilization. And you're going to help me, he says to Lady Florence. He spares you. But the rest of your natural days will be putting right what happened to Atlantis. If anybody wants any more flashback scenes, we can do them now. Otherwise, we epilogue. Oh, we have to deal with Tunara as well.
Yeah,
We'll deal with Tunara at the very, very last, I think. So, if anybody wants any flashback scenes, let's do those.
Just a tiny one. While I was sitting in the box next to Chinara, I slipped into her pocket a pendant with a pressed green orchid. That's it. Tiny flashback.
I kind of want to hop back to the moment that Jakob hands the Martian ring to Lady Florence. And I think Lady Florence goes and just like hugs Jakob. It's maybe the first time that they've shown like a physical love for each other. Um, and I think at that moment she whispers in his ear, whatever happens to me, whatever happens to Dom, to Victoria, you kill that son of a bitch.
That's terrific.
Anything else?
I think a very small flashback, very not going very far back in time at all, but when Dom saw that fetal wolf king and knew instinctually what it meant, he looked at it, but what he saw was the Shoreditch slugger in their home by the sea that he had left, and he knew he couldn't follow the Wolf King.
I'm curious about Tunara. Do we want to have a go at this last question? To try to stop her from taking up her father's mantle?
So many of our clues do read in that direction. I think we'll probably put a bow on it.
Your remaining clues are Tunara is an artist and she has a portrait of Victoria in her palace. How might those help you convince her not to carry on Jassad's legacy?
So there's also the mastermind clue that Tunara makes an offer to a hunter to be her lover.
Mm.
And so I think leaning into the fact that I also have a condition that Tunara is obsessed with Victoria, I wonder if it's just as simple as like this becomes her primary target is just pursuing me and
Oh,
not
you become the
necessarily the
distraction.
global
Yeah.
conquesting. It's not world after world. I need to, much like Lady Florence would have been impossibly compelled by that impossible color. I
Mm.
wonder if Tunara doesn't also have the fatal
Yeah.
attraction.
I love it. I think it's very simple, but it makes the most sense, and I think it's a +1 on the roll if you want to go ahead and do it.
The dice roller did bad things to my video last time. Do you mind if I roll this one?
You
with
should roll
dice?
regular dice. It's fine. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, can I have advantage because I slipped a token of the emerald orchid in her pocket so that it would be a little love token, even though I was telling her no, she
Oh
was just
yeah.
means to an end.
And also the emerald orchid, it's got it's a double-edged sword, right? Because it's not just a
It was
love
also
token.
our first meeting.
Yeah. Well, and it's also it's kind of a trap too. Like you're putting it in her pocket in a sense. Like yeah.
Okay, that's a 5, a 6, and a 1. Advantage did me well. I have an 11.
Very good. Do you want the scene, or are we content with that, knowing that's how it's going to shake out? That rather than be distracted by conquering planets, she'll be distracted by conquering you.
I'll have it in the epilogue, I think.
Okay, sounds good. Then I think that's where we go, is to epilogues, with an ending for some characters that I think we maybe didn't foresee, but that's okay. Who would like to go first?
I'll just feed into that solution. You see Tunara obsessively trying to understand these parallel dimensions and things like that. And we kind of like camera pan up through a black screen and then through a misty haze. And then we see a light atop a dark pillar in the fragrant void. And as the camera pans closer, you can see atop a pillar is just some version of Victoria with multiple faces, eyes all glowing white, so white that it pierces through this inky black eldritch fragrant void. And she sits there cross-legged, waiting to guide wayward travelers back.
I think quite simply, we see Dom approaching this house on the edge of a cliff somewhere. And there's a figure standing outside who stands up, looks towards him, and Dom just keeps walking towards it.
We see we cut to the bottom of the ocean, the Wilton Davies Trench. And we see an actual like fleet of submarines moving through over to the wreckage, the essentially carpet bombed ruins of Atlantis. They have like supplies that are kind of like dropping down in these sort of like cargo lifts, and we go through one of the portholes. And we see a little girl that's like staring out, probably 6, 7 years old, is staring out, and we see a copy of Lady Florence's book next to her. And as she's looking out the window, her head just rolls off. And the camera cuts back, and we see a weird looking man with a thread and a needle who looks over and says, "Oh, there, honey. It will be okay." And goes over and starts to sew the head back onto the body.
Yeesh, that was rough. Uh, all right, I've got so there's a scene in Wales and Llan Pedragoch. It's the farm that Lady Florence had delivered Jakob to so long ago, and Jakob is walking up the walk to greet his his adopted parents or adoptive parents, David and Rhiannon, and has brought them just a souvenir from his travels. It's a little flower pot filled with Venusian soil, and he says, I'm really grateful to you for raising me, for taking me in, and risking your calm pastoral lifestyle. And if you don't mind, I'd like to just stay for a while, put down roots. And then they're glad to see him, and they take him back because Lady Florence isn't there for him right now. And then they find, days, weeks, months later, that his old bedroom, he's gradually redecorating it and reconstructing it into a replica of the Cinnabar Temple, the last vestige of Mars. So his tiny little Welsh bedroom is starting to look like a Martian outpost headquarters for the rebuilding of Martian civilization.
That concludes the Between Extraordinary. Let's go ahead and do debrief. Stars and Wishes, I suppose, but really it's just sort of a debrief on the end of the campaign here, or at least this. And we might do a season 2 with new characters. I don't know yet, but for now, Extraordinary is done. I will say at the outset that this is, I think what was really interesting about this campaign was from the very beginning, it was so different from a normal campaign of the Between, right? I mean, the presence of the Martian, the presence of Jazad, like forces that, and so it was really interesting to see the game in that mode. And I think that the conclusion, which was so interdimensional and so cosmic and out in space, very John Carter, very very camp, very but today very weird and cosmic horror-y. I thought that was a really, really it was a really, really good way of ending the campaign, and it felt like we really built up to that. And it was cool because we got that sort of spacey sci-fi adventure that's necessitated by Jazad, but we also got plenty of weirdness too, which so that part of the Between still kind of shone through, and I really enjoyed that. I grew to like these characters quite a lot, and I think that there's just so much interesting texture. You all did a really wonderful job giving these characters texture, giving them interesting motivations, and we think back on all the sessions we ran, there's so much story happening. We think back to all the stuff with the Man in the Sun Mask and Ms. Balakwa, all the stuff that happened with the all the stuff with the with Kilburn Abbey, all that stuff that all that demon stuff that was happening, that was all really interesting. The subplots, which turned into much bigger plots, versus about the Wolf King and the Coven, Jakob's collecting strange castaways and keeping them in the basement, and of course Lady Florence and Flag and all that whole that whole sort of that bigger institutional story about London at this time, or our version of London at this time. And it was all just so fascinating and interesting, and it went in so many different interesting places, and but it was always going to kind of funnel and culminate in this confrontation with Jazad, it had to. And I thought it really went off great. I thought this session in particular was such a good example of letting the dice just tell us what's going to happen, and because before we started recording, we had a little kind of a little session of well, what do we think is going to happen? And I have to say, almost none of that happened. It was it didn't really shape up like that. And I think that's okay. I think it's okay to want a certain thing for your character, but then the dice sort of dictate something else, and the circumstances dictate something else. And so I think that's the fun of the medium, and it was great fun. And we're a group that have all played together before in lots of other contexts, and so I feel This is a good group to sort of that could handle this kind of like much more like kind of wild and out there story. And it was a lot of fun, and it was a great pleasure, and I'm really happy we got to do it together. So those are my thoughts.
I will echo a lot of that. What I thought came through a lot more in this than in our first round of the Between was it was very playful in terms of playing not just with expectations, but also the mechanics. Jason, you threw new twists on how things would normally work that kept us on our toes. It was a lot of fun. We got to explore a couple of new mechanical angles, like that mini mystery with the serial killer, and it felt like a really different version of the Between, and it allowed for a different story to be told. That was a lot of fun, quite pulp adventure, a little more just lighter, and uh everyone's characters was so good. I loved the layers of mystery and twists and turns that everyone went down, and the ending was not entirely what I expected. It was closer to happier for most, and but it felt right. It felt good, and I think I am hopeful for a season 2, because I would love to see how we built on this kind of foundation into something, and see where that goes now that we've passed the Venusian threat. See what could happen next.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I actually think the mastermind always has a big effect on this, right? Because like if we choose to do, well, we can't do Flag anymore, but if we choose to do Theodora, I think with Theodora you get the really, really classic, what people have come to understand the Between is, right? You get that kind of version of it. If we do the Fairy Queen, the Queen Mab, that probably really changes the nature of the threats that I pick. It changes the nature of the basic confrontation, and probably has a big effect on the tone and the world. It probably makes it a more fantasy kind of thing. And so I find that really, that's something I don't think I quite knew about my game, to be honest, because the game always, when I originally wrote it, I imagined the mastermind was always going to just be very mundane, but just rich and smart. That was always going to be the thing, right? So it was just going to be like another version of Theodora. But we've got 4 masterminds that are actually really quite different. Like Flag is also rich and smart, but he's also like fucking crazy, and he's got like this like kind of Lovecraftian madman obsession kind of going on. This version of Flag didn't really have that because we knew Jazad was coming, but just Flag by himself, that's the way it is. And then Queen Mab changes it in an interesting way, introduces like Fey court politics, or the idea of it, into the mix. And then of course Jazad is anything but mundane, and so like it's really interesting that like whenever I do the revision to this game, I will have to probably like change that basic expectation about the mastermind, because it turns out that the masterminds are not all just rich, smart people. They're also can be kind of weird and strange, right? So it's interesting how much of an effect that has on the tenor of the campaign. Though certainly, I think Jazad is the one that really pushes it in a certain direction, right? Like I think the other 3 masterminds, you're going to get much more closer to the Penny Dreadful tone, but with Jazad, it definitely becomes League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Like there's just it's unavoidably pulp, right? So yeah. And yet we still had those really nice, fun, dark moments. We had like those, like in the middle of our 20 sessions, we had probably about 7 or 8 of them that were really solidly just dark, right? And gritty London Jack the Ripper style, kind of vibes. So yeah.
I think go Sarah.
No, damn it. All right. Well, what I was going to say is, especially just narrowing a little bit on this session, I was so pleased at how much anticipation and heightened senses that I experienced as a player with the flashback mechanic. Because we're all storytellers in our own right, but actively weaving those threads from the past to the future, and then that anticipation of, oh shit, we're going to go back into time, how are we actually going to sort this out, really created that kind of urgency in a
It
way that
created
I
a
found
cool storytelling space too, right? Like it
very
really
much
did,
so.
yeah.
It's exploded in 1,000 ideas in my head, how I will use that for later. But I enjoyed that an awful lot just over these last 2 sessions. And just especially the way that we all engaged with that as a mechanic so wholeheartedly really gave it a lot of energy, I think.
It changes like your perspective on the storytelling, because you know that whatever contributions you make to the narrative, you know that there are certain things that have to happen because we've seen them already, and that's really interesting.
It's
And
a principle
yeah.
of improv too, right? Well, if
Right,
this is
yeah.
true, what else is true?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that was super cool. Just tiny stars and wishes. I have a tiny wish because there was a moment in today's campaign where Lady Florence, Mike, you were writing on that handkerchief, like love. And that moment, I needed the pet name. I needed the pet name. Don't sign it, Lady Florence. That's not what he calls you. So that is a tiny wish. I also I loved the counting of the sheep was glorious. You bringing back the sheep and the lurker as like textural storytelling echoes was
I
just
love the Lurker's Return. That was so good. Yeah, it was really fun.
beautiful. I had a tiny wish for Brian as well when Dominic hucked that blade. You had all 4 arms out. I really wanted that like and then you catch it with like. But again, this is just my fun headcanon for later. The monkey in the cage was good. Everyone's descriptions of their void selves were really cool.
The whole
and
Fragrant
added-
Void sequence was super cool. Yeah.
I'm so glad that field trip went off because I was really sad after Lady Florence rolling what you did, Mike. I thought I was going to kill you all in the void. It would just be me in the box wondering, well. Yeah, I think that's. Oh, and I also really enjoyed the echo that Dom ended up doing because there was all 4 limbs. Brian was punching robots with all 4 fists, and then Dominic whipping through with your blades. I saw like a really interesting battle symmetry there that I thought was really good. Yeah, that's me for now.
I guess kind of jumping off the first thing that you were saying, one of the things that I think is neat about seeing the game play out over a full campaign, and who knows what are the unique elements in here, but is the way that there's essentially like 2 like signature core elements of the Between from a carved in from Brindlewood perspective as well. Of the sort of like the way that the mystery solutions work of like, here's a bunch of disparate pieces, and now as players, like your job is to come up with how those disparate elements fit into the narrative. And I think it's kind of similar to just touch on it with the ending there. It almost works really well with the flashback mechanism because it's sort of like, here's where you're going. You know you've got all of these weird pieces. How does it end up being there? And I think that's also another part that encourages that is the echoes in the night. So early on, the game is kind of training the players in a way to be thinking about like, how do very different things get pulled into the story? And I think it was something that was really fun about this. I think there's also maybe in this particular campaign like that those contrasts become really clear between all of the different elements because we've got the sci-fi camp side and the broody gothic side, and all of that is kind of combining and playing together. And so then we have this meta challenge as players and keeper to kind of figure out like, okay, how do we pull all of these parts together? And I always start out really cold and have a hard time getting into things, but I really enjoy that sort of like, okay, how do we piece this together? How do we call back to this? Like, oh, and I think it was something fun about the challenge that I set forth to myself as well of like, I want to check off. I think I got for the record, for the official record, I got within 2 boxes, and those 2 items were added in the Witches the Coven session. So I got pretty much ran it down to the core. And that challenge as well, I think opened up some really fun moments, even and just like the serendipity and like seeing how those things fit together was very cool. Like I had been looking at that shriveled monkey in the cage for months and trying to figure out, trying to plot ahead how I'm going to use that. And it was so cool when that like opened up and it was like, oh, here's that moment. And it makes sense with everything that's going on metaphorically. So it's been really fun to just like play off of everyone and pull the different seeds that people are scattering into the story.
Well, you know, from a design standpoint, the Between, I've always viewed the Between as I basically want the players to have loads of buttons to push. You don't have to push all the buttons. You just have to find the buttons that appeal to you most and press those buttons to get story. And so whether it's the Janus mask, whether it's the personal quarters items, whether it's your moves, whether it's your vice and vulnerable scenes, no matter what the button is that you press to make the thing go, from a design standpoint, the framework, the phase framework, and the phase framework is what is, to my mind, what makes it work. Like that's how the keeper keeps it all together, right? So that no matter which of the parts that the players want to play around with, the structure will always kind of keep it like where it needs to be and keep it on track. And that really came out in this campaign, because this campaign went into such wild places, right? Like it went into a lot of really wild places. It had some really wild tonal shifts and genre shifts even. But at the end of the day, it's still day phase. It's still unseen. It's still night phase. It's still all those things that you have to hit every time that kind of keeps it all kind of chugging along. It kind of prevents it from like flying off the rails, I find. And at least in terms of how I run the game, I mean, that was, and that was also the design intention. The design intention is the players should have the ability to contribute in the story. And furthermore, I'm going to give the players all kinds of signs and buttons to contribute to the story. And as the keeper, I can keep it all together, right? Because I have this structure to rely on. And yeah, so like, you know, focusing on the personal quarters items, that's one way to do it, right? That's one way that's how we get those moments like the monkey in the cage. That's how we get those moments, right? Is because you choose to press that button. And so yeah, I don't know. I just want, from a design standpoint, I don't believe in like symmetry as much as I believe in like lots of options contained, you know, lots of options, but with a nice big, you know, box to put them all in. So, yeah.
Well, and to that end, I do feel like that's part of the nature of what works really well about the playbooks in the Between specifically, is there's enough there that you don't use, moves you don't take, that still also give you as a player plenty of context for how you might want to
inspire it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So for instance, in this case, Victoria did not die. I did not think that was going to happen. So as a player, I wrote her like last little vignette as that kind of beacon in the night, which is a move from the Vessel playbook. And I was then inspired to do that because I had to pull something out of my ass real quick.
And that becomes epilogue. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Going back to the Fragrant Void for a moment, I really felt like that fantastic space gave an ability to use anything in your personal quarters, and it makes me think about other situations where, like in the Emerald Orchid, you could get a whiff of hallucinatory gas, and then suddenly the crazy thing in your personal quarters just makes sense. Like you can make it make sense. So I'm going to use that in the future as well,
it's very advanced play, right? I mean, like that's fully within the rules of the game. Like I think the rulebook even says like it doesn't, the characters don't necessarily have to have this on their person. It just has to be something that informs the role or the action, right? And that's so that's even more pronounced in the Silt versus role-playing game, because in the Silt versus role-playing game, the stuff in the personal altar is not on their person, right? It's just stuff that's in their weird like little worship space that might be in another part of the territory. But and so the connection to that thing has to be like symbolic or representative. And so yeah, it's a good observation. But it is like sort of like advanced between play, right? Like, but it's a good way of thinking about it for sure.
Yeah. I was I take paper notes in addition to the online character keeper that Ben made. And I was looking back at notes number 1, which started in November of 2022. And that just kind of melted my brain for a second. I was like, holy cow, this has been going on for a while.
We've had this since Christmas, 2 Christmases ago. Yeah.
Yeah. But I also need to read essentially the first 4 sentences I wrote down were our characters' identities. And it opened with Lady Florence Wilton Davies, Vice, Casinos. Victoria Belacqua, Vice, Sex with Dark Entities. Dominic Constantine, Vice, Sex with Strangers. Jakob Walsh, Vice, Letters from Home. And like I had a moment of like, I might be in the wrong game. I don't know if I fit in here.
Nope. As working as intended.
Yeah, it worked out great. So it's just fun to look back at that I don't know, moment of origin and see how it all came together. Anything more to add? I don't know when I'm going to find the time, but I really do want to illustrate this as a comic book, like kind of Doctor Strange level 1970s style illustration. It seemed to fit my childhood memory of reading those comic books so well. So I kind of hope and aspire to turn this into a little thing at some point.
I would love that. Yeah, that'd be lovely.
Yeah. What else? I don't know. It's been an absolute blast playing the game. Really glad how the character arcs went. I'm honestly shocked that everybody's still alive. I didn't
Me
think that was
too.
gonna happen.
Yeah, no one died, which I thought was I could have killed Lady Florence. Yeah, but
It's a tiny wish. I shouldn't have been as scared as I was for Victoria to die in that moment when I rolled a 3 10 minutes into the episode. But I was gun shy as a player, and I think that I really have to fold that back into the flashback flash forward mechanic, because
But you know what?
typically
if
I
you
think I
hadn't made
would've
that
been
decision, if you hadn't made that decision, we would not have gotten all that cool Fragrant Void
Yeah.
stuff, right? So I mean, like
Totally.
it's just that's just how it goes sometimes, and
Mhm.
I'm happy it turned out that way because I thought those were some really cool scenes. Like they were really fun.
On that note, literally just occurred to me, Jason, the Wolf King could be Mr. Big Bad in Signals from the Other Side.
I was imagining that to be true. I
Okay.
hinted at as much in I have hinted that in both campaigns, because I have in both campaigns the character has called the player characters little pigs, and that's the thing that connects them is both the Wolf King and Mr. Big Bad called the PCs little pigs, and that's how you know you have deduced correctly that they are the same character. Yeah.
And it's Dom's fault, and I love that.
Yes, exactly. Like this is the origin story of Mr. Big Bad. You had a chance to stop all of that. Yeah. Any other thoughts before we wrap up Extraordinary? I really
Lady
love playing with
Florence
you
make an
all.
appearance in Planet Raygun.
Yeah, I think Jazad should be a character in Planet Raygun personally, but or in Tunara, like all that. It'd be a really great kind of callback.
Hargrave House is in a museum in one of
good.
the
Yeah.
heists,
Yeah.
and so I think that'll be a fun way for people to insert their between experiences.
Yeah, I love that. I love those connections between the games, like the Whateleys being involved in public access, right? Like all that stuff is really fun. And Hargrave House is referenced in Ghosts of El Paso and in The Between, or Brindlewood Bay. It's referenced in Brindlewood Bay and The Between's spinoffs. Okay, fantastic. Well, this is great fun. I don't know what we're going to do next. I don't know if we're going to dive straight into a season 2. I think we might do something else next week, but I will look forward to seeing you all then. So let's wave goodbye to everybody watching the video.